Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to tell you my story about how I went from being depressed to being motivated every single day. When I was in school, I was bullied a lot. And it started when I was just 12 years old. And I was bullied all throughout middle school and most of high school. And there was one time that really stood out to me and really had an effect on me that lasted a very long time. And basically what happened was a few of my so-called friends at school convinced me to go to the bathroom with them. And I was like, all right, let's go to the bathroom. And once we got into the bathroom, they locked the door and they started making fun of me. And they were calling me names and they were pushing me around. And yeah, it was not a good time. And I remember vividly walking home from school that day, feeling very sad and worthless and angry. And I didn't understand why people would treat me so poorly. And then when I got home, I did something that I had never done before. I looked up psychology terms for depression. Because I thought maybe if I could figure out why I felt this way, I could fix it. And I stumbled upon something called learned helplessness. And it basically means that you feel like you are not in control of anything in your life. And that everything is happening to you. And that you don't have any power to change anything. And I remember reading that and being like, oh my God, that's me. That's exactly how I feel. So I was like, okay, so I have this problem. But how do I fix it? And I didn't know how to fix it at the time. I was like 12 or 13 years old. I didn't know how to fix it. And so I just kind of pushed it aside and tried to move on from it. But I think the reason that this event stuck with me for so long is because it made me realize how little control I actually had over my life. And I spent a lot of my life just trying to gain more control over my life and trying to become more resilient to things that happened to me. And the way that I did that was by learning from some of the greatest people who have ever lived. And the first person that I learned from was Marcus Aurelius. And I read his book Meditations. And I realized that he was able to go through some of the most difficult situations in history and be happy. And that really inspired me to try to become more resilient and less affected by whatever was going on in my life. The next person I learned from was Jim Stoltz. I read his book, The Obstacle is the Way. And he talks about how he learned from Marcus Aurelius and how he was able to apply stoicism in his own life and become very successful. And then I also read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins because I was looking for more motivation to get in shape. And in that book, he talks about how he went from being clinically obese to being one of the most physically fit people in the world. And I was just blown away by his story. And then I also read Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, because I thought that would help me with my social interactions, and it definitely did. So after reading all these books, I was like, all right, I think I've got a pretty good grasp on how to be more resilient and how to become more motivated. But what I didn't realize was that I needed to take action. All the knowledge in the world won't do anything unless you take action. And I remember I wrote down 3 goals that I wanted to achieve, and those goals were to lose weight, to make friends, and to stop being depressed. And I wrote those down, and I said, I want to achieve these things no matter what happens. And I wrote them in pen so that if I ever wanted to cross them out, I couldn't. And that way I would never forget why I was doing what I was doing. And I put those goals on my mirror, and I would look at them every morning and night. And I would remind myself that I am capable of achieving these things. And then I came up with daily habits that would lead me closer to those goals. So for goal no. 1, which was to lose weight, I knew that I needed to exercise and eat better. So every morning, I would wake up and I would force myself to go for a run, even if I didn't want to. And I would also meal prep so that I would have healthy food ready to eat. 4, goal no. 2, which was to make friends. I knew that I needed to be more social and reach out to people. So every day I would try to strike up conversations with people. And I would also join clubs and activities to meet new people. And for goal no. 3, which was to stop being depressed. I knew that I needed to be more grateful and focus on the positive things in my life. So every day I would write down 3 things that I was grateful for. Now, the reason why this worked for me is because I was able to visualize myself achieving these goals, and I was able to see the progress that I was making every single day, and that kept me motivated. I wasn't focused on the fact that I had failed in the past. I was focused on the fact that I was taking action now, and that was what mattered. And I also realized that motivation doesn't come before action. You have to take action first, and then the motivation will come. If you wait for motivation to strike you, you'll never do anything. The next thing that I did was I surrounded myself with positive influences. I unfollowed accounts on social media that made me feel bad about myself, and I followed accounts that inspired me and made me feel good about myself. I also spent time with people who were supportive and encouraging and who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. And that really helped me build up my confidence in myself. The third thing that I did was I started helping other people, and this is something that I learned from the Stoics. They believed that the best way to achieve happiness was to focus on other people and to help them in any way that you can. And so I started volunteering at a soup kitchen, and I was also a tutor at my school. And I found that helping other people made me feel good about myself, and it gave me a sense of purpose. It made me feel like I was making a difference in the world in some small way. The fourth thing that I did was I started practicing gratitude. And this is something that I learned from the book, The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. He talks about how the best way to deal with negative emotions like depression is to focus on the positive emotions like gratitude. And so I started writing down 3 things that I was grateful for every day. And it didn't have to be anything major. It could be something as simple as being grateful for a sunny day, or being grateful for a delicious meal. And I found that when I started focusing on gratitude, I was able to feel better about myself and my life in general. The 5th thing that I did was I started meditating. And this is something that I learned from the book 10% Happier by Don Harris. He talks about how meditation can help you focus your mind and reduce anxiety and stress. And I found that when I started meditating for just 10 minutes a day, I was able to feel calmer and more in control of my emotions. Lastly, the 6th thing that I did was I started journaling. And this is something that I learned from the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She talks about how journaling can help you process your emotions and become more self-aware, and I found that when I started journaling for just 10 minutes a day, I was able to work through my negative emotions and become more confident and more self. And after doing all these things, I was eventually able to achieve my goals. I lost weight, I made friends, and I stopped being depressed. And most importantly, I became more resilient. And I realized that I was capable of achieving anything that I set my mind to. And that's why I'm sharing my story with you guys. I want to inspire you to become more resilient and to achieve your goals no matter what happens. If you liked this video, please make sure to subscribe and leave a comment. Thanks for watching.